and having a positive growth. So, welcome to the Open University of Mauritius and to this conference. Why this multidisciplinary conference? I must say that this conference, we have decided to keep it multidisciplinary because whenever we end up in a board or in any meeting, you have people from different fields. And I think that this is the approach that we need to adopt to solve problems, to discuss about issues that we have. That's why we decided to have this multidisciplinary approach. So I invite all the participants, the researchers, the academics, people from the world of work to come together, not only for the presentation of their papers, not only to present their findings, but to work together on projects, to see what are the issues that our countries are facing and what can we do. Believe me, there are millions of jobs at stake, and we need to do something about it. If I ask you a question, how many of you had a smartphone in the year 2000? Or how many apps did you download in 2010? Do you realize today we are downloading 197 billion of apps? And I must not tell you about the billions of smartphones available. So things are changing. Things are evolving, and they're evolving fast. In fact, we have 3.9 billion, it is estimated to have 3.9 billion smartphones today, out of which 90% are 3G and 4G phones. So the question that arises, well, we would like to use the technology. We would like to harness the power of technology. How? These are the questions that we would like participants to answer. Let me tell you one coming from the education sector, an example from the education sector. Asking a child today, how do you view teaching in the classroom? You know what was his reply? It is as if I'm traveling in an aeroplane. You know what happens when you get into an aeroplane? What happens? First thing, switch off your mobile phone. All electronic devices must be switched off. Who is actually driving you? Somebody who you don't see. But you have to trust that person. You have to trust that person because even if you don't see that person, switch off everything. This is how a child nowadays or our student at the university view our classroom. We have to integrate it. But then the question arises, how? How to integrate it? So these type of conferences actually would give us the opportunity to discuss about the issues. How to integrate all the technology that we have into education. I am a strong believer in use of videos in teaching and learning. But I think today, with augmented reality, I see the iPhone, the new iPhone already has the augmented reality feature, right? We were thinking Pokemon actually gave that power in our pocket. How can we use that in our teaching and learning process? How can we actually use that to do our job better every day? So these are the questions that we would actually like participants to consider throughout the conference. In terms of the education sector, we welcome Mr. Varden, who is the representative of our parent ministry and the minister. Our government has already invested in supplying Office 365, and all our schools are well equipped today with IT technology. With a low pupil-teacher ratio of 24:1, very rare in this part of the world to have a low pupil-teacher ratio of 24:1 at primary level and 14:1 at secondary level, free transport, free textbook at primary level, right? Access to technology, that we can't have any excuse not to do well. But we would like to know what would be the best strategy. And I think this is one of the topics that we would like participants to consider. Apart from the conference, you've come here in the peak season. This is where we welcome most of our tourists. So I would also invite all our delegates to enjoy the beach and the sea and to make most of your stay. So let me wish every one of you a fruitful conference, a fruitful deliberation, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, DJ. For those who would like to hear more about what he has started, we have the plenary session after lunch, so please come and join one of the two plenary sessions and we'll be able to discuss more about it. Thank you for your unflinching support and sustained guidance throughout the planning stages of this conference and for trusting us to be able to make this happen. We have in our midst the Vice Chancellor of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, who has traveled all the way from Durban to testify of his unconditional support for this conference. We look forward to your address, Dr. Van Albert Jasveld.
Sanibonani, good morning, as they say in our part of the world. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Minister Samuel Naden, Dr. Sukwan, Mr. Apavu, Dr. Singh. Thank you for all the hard work you've put in to bring us together on this wonderful morning in Mauritius. I must admit, this is my first visit to Mauritius, which is a scandal, but I'm going to try and make up for it in the time I'm here. And so, as they always say, you go to far-flung places and you forget to visit your neighbors. Eh? So that's one of those things we're going to fix from now onwards. So thank you very much for taking this initiative and for bringing our communities together and for bringing together the people that have interest in the broad landscape of management, governance and IT. I'll touch on a few of thoughts, some of my thoughts, if you like, around this particular area. And one of those touchy aspects that academics don't like to engage with is the notion of governance. You know, when research was something, it was a small part of our activities in the world, and you could practice it in the corner at the back there, and the minister would give you a little bit of money to go play in the corner. He was hoping that something useful would come out of that activity. But what's happened across the world, of course, that the research and development enterprise has grown dramatically. I think it's become one of the chief tools that governments invest in to grow their economies, to grow their societies, and strengthen their societies as we move ahead. Of course, one of the consequences of that is because they invest more money in it, they want more responsibility and accountability, and therefore the governance of research is strengthening around the world. So, in essence, if you complain about governance, it's your fault, all right? You're victims of your own success. And so, I think that's unfortunately the reality that we find ourselves in. And I think a multidisciplinary conference such as this on management, IT and governance does for us, particularly at UKZN, represent a timely milestone. It's clear that IT systems, increasingly, as we've just heard, into the future will form the backbone of improved institutional governance systems. They also form the backbone of improved business management and information systems that we're all going to rely on to take our institutions and our enterprises forward. We at UKZN feel privileged that we can actually work in this kind of transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary fashion. We have a college model that allows us to create and foster and develop and rapidly respond to new synergies that may emerge across these areas. And if there is, I think the international trends, of course, are quite clear. Moodle is expanding across the world, but I do think that Moodle has a weakness. Moodle's weakness is the fact that is not always locally relevant. It's not grounded in terms of the environment in which you're functioning in. And I think that's where universities can function very effectively as well. Yes, leaning on the IT systems and the Moodle opportunities that arise and exist, but at the same time making sure that we remain firmly rooted in your local context and environment. There is room for us to look at strengthening our modes of learning, in particular a blended mode of learning. And I think we at UKZN are working very hard to increase our capacity as far as blended learning capabilities are concerned. We, of course, as a university, always looking for stronger, better international partnerships, and this partnership with the Open University of Mauritius is something that we cherish, and that's why we've come to support this particular activity. And we're going to work with them to strengthen our own internationalization and entrepreneurship objectives at the university, and hopefully there'll be more staff and student exchanges, et cetera, into the future as we strengthen those ties. Now, there was a very interesting article published a series of articles published in Nature just the other day. It's called The World of Work. I don't know if those of you who haven't seen it, get hold of it. It's quite a recent version of Nature. It actually, the sages are predicting what the future of our world of work is going to look like. And they focus particular attention on automation and artificial intelligence and what's going to happen in the job market over the coming years. First of all, I think they're suggesting that there are routine works that clearly can be automated and will be automated. And just in case you thought the routine work at your local hospital is the nurses, it's not so. It's the medical professionals are the guys that do the routine work. They diagnose the diseases. So artificial intelligence will be better at replacing the specialists than they will be at replacing the nurses. All right. So just be careful. It's not necessarily a hierarchical intervention that you can emerge from this. But what they do say, which is interesting, is that of the people that were born last year, all the young people in the world, 65% of them are going to be doing jobs which don't exist yet. And when we think as educationalists and educational institutions about what we're doing and how we're teaching people, I think it's very important that we need to understand that education and teaching is not just about skills transfer. It is about educating people fundamentally. And what is the purpose of education? If you go right back to the old textbooks, people will tell you, the purpose of education is to make sure that your students know what to do when they don't know. All right, and that's really what it's about. In other words, teaching people to think so they can stand on their own feet and move from multiple jobs. Who of you are still doing the job that you were trained for when you started your university degree? Very few of us do, and that's going to be an increasing trend. So we at UKZN are very excited about engaging in this area of work. We at university, we considered one of the top 500 in the world for the last number of years. We have 48,000 students spread over 5 campuses on this eastern seaboard of South Africa. We produce about 10,000 graduates a year and 300 PhD students. And we hope that this collaboration with the Open University of Mauritius will allow us to even take that to the next level and to make sure that we strengthen our work both here in Mauritius but also in Durban and Pietermaritzburg where we're based. We as the university have identified as part of our new strategy 4 research flagship areas that we're going to be investing in to grow critical mass and critical capabilities across the universities. And I think you'll be glad to hear that one of those areas is big data and informatics, which is a platform for collaboration.